Wednesday was the first day of the MLB international signing period, and the Mets have landed 17-year-old shortstop Elian Pena from the Dominican Republic. Hey, check this out, amazing. Some scouts are considering this guy to be the next best international free agent outside of Roki Sasaki. So let's bring in our New York Post MLB writer, Dan Martin, to talk about the Mets' new international signing. Dan, I can think of a lot of things I was doing as a 17-year-old, and signing a $5 million deal to play in the big leagues wasn't one of them. How you feeling today, man, before we get this thing started?
I'm good, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm not good enough. Not. I could be doing $5 million better. But let's talk about this kid, because I went on YouTube. I wanted to see who he was, what he was like. The kid's an absolute stud. So what or who are the Mets getting, and how good can this kid be for this franchise in the future?
That's always the question with these things. It's a big deal the day that he signs and leading up to it. But he's only 17 years old, as you pointed out. So it's a lot of money for someone as young as he is. But the Mets and a lot of other people are excited about him. A really good left-handed swing. That's what sets him apart from everything else. He's a shortstop and plays pretty good defense from the sound of it, from the scouts that I've talked to. They like his defense, but he's a hitter. He's got power. He's athletic. He's obviously going to grow. So the comparisons already that they're making are, something like a Rafael Devers, because he's a lefty swinging third baseman, or could be a third baseman. Anytime a guy like this signs with the team, people like me, want comparisons from scouts, so they have to come up with something. And in this case, it's Devers, which obviously the Mets would sign up for right now. So we'll see. He's got a long way to go. This is the first step of about 100 that he's going to have to take to get to the majors. But this is a huge investment for the Mets. In terms of what this market is, they only had $6.2 million allotted to the international signing pool, as most teams do. So they gave about 80% of it to this one kid because they think that much of him.
Tremendous upside is what I continue to hear, not only on social media, but from you. The scouts are saying it as well. But what does this kid need to work on and get better at before he does hit the majors, that one special day for him?
He just needs to play baseball. He needs to get bigger. He needs game experience. The thing about these types of signings is it's not like other sports where, an NBA or an NFL team signs or drafts a player in a year or so, or even less, they could be starting, for the team. This kid is going to go to the Dominican Summer League and play there for a while, and then maybe a couple more steps before you hear of him again. And then he's in single A, so he's got to get bigger. He's got to get stronger. He needs game experience. He's 17 years old, so he'd be a high school senior maybe. So there's a thousand things he needs to do, but that swing is something that you can't teach, right? The left-handed having the power, natural power. That's what they like about him. That tool is something that you don't see every day. So that's what makes him unique. That's what the Mets are investing in, and so we'll see how it develops over the next few years. But we've seen this with other guys that we've heard about. With the Yankees, it was Jason Dominguez. He signed in 2018. There was nothing bigger than Jason Dominguez when he signed for $5.1 million, and that was 7 years ago. And as we know, he had to work his way through the system. Took him 5 or 6 years to get up. When he did finally come up, he set the world on fire for a week, hit 4 home runs in 8 games. Then he got hurt, and then he didn't come back until the end of last year, and we're still not quite sure how good he's going to be. So it's a very long process, but right now it's an exciting time for the Mets and for this 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, it was an exciting deal as well. Let's kind of get in a little bit deeper on when it comes to this, talking about the compensation. His bonus is the largest in franchise history, and it's also the largest for any Latin player this year. Had they signed Japanese phenom Roki Sasaki, would they have been able to lock up Pena?
Absolutely not. He would have gone somewhere else, and someone else, some other team that was not involved in the Sasaki sweepstakes would have used the bulk of their pool to take him, because Sasaki's going to take pretty much, if not the entire thing, all of it, with the Dodgers or the Padres or the Blue Jays or wherever he winds up. So that made kind of a tricky situation for a lot of teams that were talking to Sasaki and wanted him, because they were then going to have to figure out, how to let these other guys go. I mean, we've seen the Dodgers do it with a couple of players. They told them about a week ago they were free to make other deals. So they did. So it's a little unfair to the Latin players, but a guy like Sasaki only comes along once every 10 years, who's that young and that gifted, to fall into this category where he's not a real free agent. So, yeah, I mean, the Mets are obviously unhappy to miss out on Sasaki, but this is a pretty good guy to wind up with in Pena, a guy that they're very excited about and someone who's considered as good as any player outside of Sasaki this signing period.
Yeah, I mean, these two are going to be linked in terms of their careers. They're going to be linked, I guess, like for their entire careers to see who pans out to be what. And right now, you can, I guess, Amazing's want Pena to have himself a heck of a career. Now, with this signing, how would you describe the impact that David Stearns has had on the Mets prospect pool and the development of young talent since he took over as team president?
It's just like everything else, especially with Steve Cohen as the owner, they're investing a lot more money into things than they used to. So their farm system is well considered. They got hit with some injuries last year. Guys like Jet Williams and Drew Gilbert and Ronnie Maurizio were guys that are moving up through the system, got held back a little bit by injuries. So we're not going to really know how good this system is probably until this year. And then, they're just making it deeper. And there are different ways to go about building a system. There are other teams that will sign 5 guys today to $1 million each. Juan Soto was not nearly the biggest signing of his class when he signed, out of the Dominican Republic when he was a young kid. And he obviously became the best player by far of that group. So it's hard. It's always hard to predict how these any deals are going to work out, but especially when you're dealing with guys 16, 17 years old and trying to project what they're going to be like in 22, 23, 24 years old. But right now, Pena is going to be in the mix as one of their top prospects, and they're hopeful that the guys that are a little bit more experienced, a little closer to the majors, stay healthy and maybe can contribute in a year or two. So, the farm system's in pretty good spot. And I think just like everything else in the organization, it's gotten an overhaul in the last couple of years, more money, more resources. And, at some point it's going to pay dividends, just like the money has with Juan Soto, why he's playing in Queens this year. So it's still a work in progress, but I think they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think we all can agree this offseason the Mets got better in both the now and the future as well. Dan Martin, thanks for hopping on with us today, my man.
You better, Brandon.